Hi, this is Bruce Boxleitner, and you're listening to Then Is Now podcast.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
What kind of a sick school is this?
Uh-oh, don't go!
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
You got spunk. I hate spunk.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
Oh, righty.
How you doing? Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Say hello to my little friend.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
What are you people? On dope?
Stop whining.
I got a crap on deck that can choke a donkey.
Who is your daddy?
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Can I do that?
I'll be back.
A dynamite! Show me the money!
Don't! Up your nose with your rubber hose.
A what?
I'm sailing! I'm sailing!
Groovy.
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
Here's looking at you, kid.
We got no food, we got no jobs, our pets' heads are falling off!
Come to the coast and get together, have a few laughs.
Hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey!
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
I love it when a plan comes together.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
We're on a mission from God.
Hello and welcome to Then Is Now podcast. I am your host, Re-Gor. Throughout television history, there have been child actors. Some have continued on in successful careers, whether they continued acting or had a different calling. While we've had a plethora of child stars in recent history via Nickelodeon or the Disney Channel, growing up in the 1970s, when there were only a handful of TV stations, there were only a handful of child stars that stayed with us as we watched them grow up on TV alongside ourselves. Today's guest has had an amazing career, and as we watched him grow up, we also knew he would go on to do great things. Now, younger listeners out there may not have heard of him, but his legacy still touches us today, and he's been an important fixture in our pop culture. So sit back and get ready to hear a great interview with an actor who has gone on to other kinds of success and has helped hundreds, if not thousands, of people over the years. Class is in session.
I have a bad feeling about this.
How could I possibly be expected to handle school on a day like this?
Food fight!
Hey, you in my class? I am today.
I think you should consider transferring to shop class. Now, very few students are severely injured in shop class.
Bueller.
When you were in school,
Bueller.
did you ever cut class?
Bueller.
Yeah, I guess I did. Sure, most kids cut classes.
Good, sign this. He's sick.
I get so lonely when I hear that third attendance bell ring and all my kids are not here.
7 years of college down the drain.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
You lack discipline.
As long as I'm here, there will be no grades or gold stars or demerits. We're gonna have recess all the time. Woo! Go, play, and have fun now!
Folks, our guest today started acting at the tender age of 3 and went on to become a fixture on TV and in films in the 1960s and 70s. He reads and speaks 5 languages fluently: English, Portuguese, Spanish, American Sign Language, and French. He's been in such movies as The Russians Are Coming, The Russians Are Coming, The Biscuit Eater, Napoleon and Samantha, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and A Talking Cat, just to name a few. His numerous TV credits include Bonanza, Bewitched, Green Acres, Gunsmoke, and Adam 12, again just to name a few. but his most memorable TV performances were as Jody Davis on Family Affair and Johnny Stewart on Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. He's worked with such actors as Carl Reiner, Eva Marie Saint, Alan Arkin, Jonathan Winters, Brian Keith, Warren Oates, Fred Gwynne, E.G. Marshall, Billy Barty, and he gave Jodie Foster her first on-screen kiss. In 1973, he appeared on The World of Sid and Marty Krofft live at the Hollywood Bowl with the Brady Kids, Jack Wilde, and H.R. Pufnstuf himself. And folks, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that in 1965, he was the original actor to play one of my favorite characters, Scotty Baldwin, on my all-time favorite TV show, General Hospital. In 1999, he received the former Child Star Lifetime Achievement Award at the Young Artist Awards. In more recent years, he's been a passionate advocate for child actors and speaks on addiction in the workplace, signs and symptoms of an addict, the history of addiction and how it continues today, as well as many other treatment and addiction themes. He currently teaches young actors, as well as running the Peso por Peso Alcohol and Drug Rehabilitation Center. Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly an honor to welcome to the show one of my childhood icons, the amazing Johnny Whitaker.
Well, hello, and it is wonderful to be with you. Except, now, I thought you told me that you were Portuguese.
I am not. No, I'm Italian.
Oh, well, even Italiano, you said peso for peso, my friend. It's paso por paso.
Paso por paso. I was going to ask you about that. I wasn't 100% sure.
That's okay. We'll let the Italian get it all mixed up. But
oh, man, that's awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. You know, I always admired you as a kid, and there were times where I would, jump up on a stool and I'd sing along with you singing the theme to Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. And,
right.
Now my wife gets mad when I do that, so I can't do that anymore. But I usually like to ask guests about their journey to becoming an actor. And you started so young. I think you started in commercials, right? Do you remember how that all came about?
Yeah, well, my mother, I'm one of 8 children.
Wow.
And you're either Mormon, Catholic, or careless.
Yeah.
And, by the way, I may not be totally PC. So if you get letters and notes and emails from people, just pass them on to me and I'll
No worries. I don't believe in PC anyway, so.
But anyway, my mother, at the time, I was the youngest, except my mother was pregnant with number 6.
Wow.
I was number 5. I had a brother older than me. I had a sister that was the oldest, then a brother, then 2 sisters, and then me. And the 2 sisters above me and my oldest sister, the 3 of them, well, my family, when my siblings were born, my father's test to see if he was the father is if they would cry a perfect C. And all of us came out crying a perfect C. He and his brothers and father would sing. My father had a beautiful baritone voice, and my grandfather had a beautiful Irish tenor, and my uncles and all of them, and my aunts too, they sang well. Anyway, so my sisters, I'm going around a long thing, and this is just a podcast. So.
That's fine. No, that's totally fine.
Anyway, my sisters were told by my father to learn harmonies in 3-part harmonies. And so they did. And there was a new song that had come out for the children to sing in the Mormon faith called I Am a Child of God. And my mother got the music late and wasn't able to teach all the children, and they were getting ready to do the children's program for the congregation. So my mother taught me and my sisters and another little girl who was 5, and she was going to be singing the lead. But because I was there, I could practice with my sisters. But when it came to that Sunday, the lead was going to do it. Well, the lead got the chicken pox.
Wow.
And so the only other kid in the whole congregation who kind of knew the words was this 3.5-year-old boy. And okay, I was, kind of a smart aleck anyway. And, I got up on the pulpit to sing with my sisters, and I sang the first verse. I am a child of God, and he has sent me here, has given me an earthly home with parents kind and dear. And then my sisters would come in harmony.
Nice.
Lead me, guide me, walk beside me, help me find the way. Teach me all that I must do to live with him someday. And then the accompanist prepared for the second verse. And I forgot the words.
Oh, no.
Oh, my goodness. So this little 3.5-year-old boy, she played the intro again, and I knew I was supposed to be singing, and my sisters looked at me, and I looked out at the congregation, and I am a child of God, and I started making up the words. And my sisters were elbowing me like, that's not the right words, and it was like, just leave me alone. I'm going to sing it, and we'll do it. Anyway, so we got through the second verse, and then the third verse I remembered, and the congregation was laughing and crying and thinking it was so sweet, and the music was pretty. And after the services, one of the congregants came to my mother and said, for a 3.5-year-old boy to get up in front of a congregation of 200 people and not get flustered by forgetting the words and just letting the show go on. That kid has got some chutzpah, and he's got definitely talent. Would you consider taking him to my son's agent? And my mother said, well, I don't know about this stuff. And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. I'll tell you all about it.
Wow.
So about a week later or so, I was in front of my agent, and that day she sent me out on an audition. I got the audition and started making money.
That's awesome. Wow. And so it's safe to say basically that performance is in your blood, right?
Yeah. And whether it's on a podcast or in front of an audience singing If and I Was God for the 94th birthday party of Richard Sherman, it's all the same.
Right, exactly. And so you started with commercials, right?
Well, every child in the industry, or most people when they first get into television and film, unless they come from theater, that's the first thing that is possible, is making money in print or commercials.
Right.
So, yeah, I was the sun-kissed orange boy.
Oh, right.
There's a picture of me holding a half of a sun-kissed orange with my orange hair and my orange skin and freckles, smiling, and I look like a little orange. And there I am. And I did Funny Faces, Fun to Drink, and lots of other commercials. But I didn't do a lot after Family Affair, but I'd still like to get some of that little cashalota.
Yeah. And did you think growing up as an actor that was something that everyone did, or were you aware that it was sort of something special and different?
Well, as I teach my children and adult students about acting is having fun. And acting is just having the opportunity, instead of having fun and not knowing what you're saying until you say it, is being able to read or respond to other people's words, but you just have fun using them like they're yours.
Right.
So I saw it as just having fun, and I enjoyed it. I thought that it was fun, and I didn't know that I was making money. I just went with my mom and went in front of the camera or went to an audition, and then a couple days later I would go on the set, and I would meet my welfare worker, and then when school started I would meet the teacher. But all of that, it was part of my life. I liked it.
Nice. Nice. And did you find, like, I know that we've all heard the stories of things that have happened to child stars. Like you mentioned, you didn't even realize you were making money, and there are kids who had been robbed because of that. What are some of the pitfalls, having gone through that process through your youth, what are some of the pitfalls that child stars could run into or used to run into? Maybe it's different now.
Well, in the 1930s, we had the Jackie Coogan law.
Yeah.
In the state of California only. And it was signed into law in 1939, and that was designed to safeguard a portion of their earnings for when they reach the age of majority or 18,
right,
and protect them from exploitation and abuse. And it was, and I'm reading from Wikipedia, very important. But in that, basically, the law stated that anytime that a child was working in the entertainment industry under a contract, a longer-term contract, not for commercials or one-time films, but under contract meant, well, of course, back in the heyday of Hollywood, they had people under contract. So individuals like Shirley Temple that were under contract with MGM, Universal, etc.
Right.
Those individuals would have a portion of their money set aside. And what happened is we, as children, are represented by a lawyer, by the state, and my parents go before a lawyer and show their expenses for me being an actor, not the expenses of the family, just my expenses.
Right.
Then the judge decides on the portion of income that will be set aside for the child.
Right.
So although I did a whole lot of work in a whole lot of shows, the only money that was set aside for me was Family Affair and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters.
Oh, okay.
Everything else that I did, the Tom Sawyer, the Disney movies, etc., all of that was not included in, so my parents got all of that, or my family. I shouldn't say my parents, but
right.
They're the ones that were taking care of it. And in 2000, I was very grateful to be a part of a SAG-AFTRA workforce that came up with the current Coogan law. They never changed the name, but they got it. And now and again, this is only in the state of California.
Right.
That the monies are saved at a minimum of 15%. The parents can make more or can put, and basically what happens is the family must open a Coogan account. It's a new thing for banks in the state of California. And basically all it is the parents go down with the birth certificate and show that this is the child, and or any paperwork that indicates that the child has a different name or whatever.
Right.
And takes that to the bank. And then upon getting a job as an extra or as, top billing, it doesn't matter. If you are under 18, the parents are required to give that information to the welfare worker or teacher, the studio teacher, who then verifies the information and then gives it to the production assistant, who then takes it to the payroll. And upon getting a check, depending on how payroll is done, 15% of the gross of that check, let's just say it's, $100, $15 will then be automatically deposited via wire transfer or,
right,
easily enough in today's market, and that money will go directly into that Coogan account. Once that child turns 18, he or she can go into that Coogan account and extract the money or keep it or do whatever they want with it.
Oh, that's cool. And it makes sense because the studio system is no longer the way it used to be. They don't put actors on contract, and they haven't for a while.
Right. It's individual project by project.
Right. Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And, speaking of, studio and stuff like that, do you remember anything about being on the set of General Hospital?
I do remember I was just up to the ABC studios up there. I have some friends who live up and around there, and I just decided to, park and drive up. And of course, it's very, very, nobody can get in without a pass and a reason.
Right.
But I remember doing the table read every week, and I was 5, but I had learned to read.
That's awesome.
And my mother, of course, was sitting right there and whispering into my ear, and that's how I started learning how to read. And when my lines would come up, I would, my mother would whisper them in my ear if I couldn't read them. That's what she'd do first, and then I'd read, wow. And I would respond with my lines, and we would go through that because I think we didn't film or tape on Fridays or Mondays. Maybe it was Monday. I don't know. And then we would do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all in one. So I had to be there whether or not I was in, if I was in any of that week's scenes.
Right.
So I was there. And I just remember being the only child, I believe, and just being loved and pampered and cared for very positively.
Nice. And in the late 1970s, actor Ken Schreiner took over the role. They aged him quite a bit. And have you met him at all?
No, but my nephew had a one-day role on General Hospital. And so I and I was his guardian for the day. And so I took a sticky note and put it on the front of his dressing room and just said, "Hi, Ken, this is Johnny Whitaker. I was the original Scotty Baldwin. Just thought it would be fun to talk." And gave him my information and never contacted me. And
oh, that's too bad.
It could have fallen off. I don't know. It was just a sticky note.
Oh, yeah.
But, I had hoped, and, and I'd asked other people on the set, where is Ken's dressing room, and is it possible? I didn't just do it. I asked permission.
Yeah.
And that's just the kind of guy I am. And so I did it and haven't heard back. So, again, I don't blame him or whatever, but I think it would be fun. I have done a couple of, they have here in LA, or they had before COVID, they had a get-together of a 50-year reunion.
Oh, yeah.
For the casts and, the past casts.
Right.
And we had our own little part. And it was fun. I met a lot of fans. And there was only one person, though, that had recognized me from 1965.
Wow. That's great. So how did the Russians Are Coming come about? I mean, I remember enjoying that movie as a kid as well.
Right. Well, as most any film or role that an actor gets, my agent, Mary Grady, who just passed away this past year at the age of 95.
Wow.
Beautiful woman, kind of like my godmother. Anyway, she saw that they're looking for a, 5 to 6 year old boy for the role of, I forget what my name was, and he needs to not be afraid of heights.
Right.
And so my agent put me in, and I did a screen test, and I got the job. And so my mother and I went to, what's it called? Anyway, Northern California to do the film. And while we were there, what I do remember, Brian Keith knocked on our door and said, "Can Johnny Whitaker come out to play?" And, of course, this gorgeous hunk of a man comes to the door, and my mother is not, I mean, she's totally dressed, but we had our motel room, and she was, and I say, "Hi, Brian," and he says, "Come on out. Here's a baseball glove. Let's play." And then he says, "Is that okay?" And yeah, it's okay. So we started playing, and for whatever reason, Brian, even though I don't remember having any scenes with him, but we had, my roommate just came out. His name is Bryant.
Oh.
And I said, "Hey, Brian." And so he came out wondering, and I thought, what is he standing in the room for?
That's awesome.
That I called him. Anyway, so Brian, when he was ready to start the casting for Family Affair, told the producers that it was important to at least take me and let me be a part of, well, my agent had also contacted them and said, the original Family Affair was meant for a 6-year-old girl, a 10-year-old boy, and a 16-year-old girl.
Right, yeah.
That was Sissy, Jody, and Buffy.
Right.
And my agent had finagled her way to talk to the casting people, like most agents are supposed to do, and just said, with Brian Keith's support, we've got Johnny here who just finished a film with Brian, and I understand Brian would like him to come in for a screen test. Well, I know that it's a 10-year-old boy, but Brian would like him to screen test, and he's one of the producers and the star of the show. So when would you like to see Johnny? And they go, well, you know that it's a 10-year-old boy. And she goes, well, it could be 10-year-old twins or 6-year-old twins.
Oh, wow.
And so, at least that put it in the mind of the producers and the casting people that might be a possibility. Anyway, so I was the only 6-year-old boy there, and there were lots of 10-year-old boys, and they were doing their screen tests with the different girls, and I screen tested with Anissa Jones and Pamela Ferdinand and another couple of girls. I even think Eve Plum was there.
Oh, wow.
If I'm not mistaken. But anyway, when I did the scene with Anissa, and they had it on tape or video, or I don't know if they probably filmed it. Anyway, they looked at the two of us and said, we really look like we are brother and sister and could be fraternal twins.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the coloring and just the look. And Anissa's mother was first-generation Lebanese and had very dark hair and very dark eyes, but her father was English and had very light features, and so Anissa got her father's looks, and then her younger brother, John Paul, got the dark looks and from their mother. But
oh, okay.
So when they saw the two of us, they said, "Hey, this is magic. Let's make lots of money and make them 6-year-old twins." And so that's how that started.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I want to come back to Family Affair, but I did have one more question about the Russians are coming. Did you have any fun stories of working with Carl Reiner and Alan Arkin or Jonathan Winters?
Well, just that when Brian came to the door to play, my mother was making boy cheese sandwiches because I was not going to have a girl cheese sandwich. And, my mother, we would get a per diem, which was, how much money that it would cost to go to a restaurant for breakfast and dinner, and then lunch we got on the set.
Right.
And so my mother would save that money, and with, our first week, she went out and got a little grill, and, I'm a kid and she's a mom, and so we had grilled cheese sandwiches, which I didn't like grilled cheese sandwich. I want a boy cheese sandwich. And so Brian came knocking at the door, and I said, "Hey, Brian, do you want a boy cheese sandwich?" And he said, "What?" And he says, "You guys are having grilled cheese? No, that's not acceptable." And I guess he'd brought Jonathan over to play. And Jonathan, of course, had already 5 or 6 kids at that time.
Yeah.
Like I said, Mormon, Catholic, or careless.
Right.
And so he said, "John, you and I are taking Thelma and Johnny out to dinner." And, Jonathan Winter's eyes perked up and like, "Hell no, I'm not paying for anybody else. I got my own kids." And so I said, "Yes, you are, you old coot. You're going to come with us." And so Brian made Jonathan Winters, pay for our dinners, or he did. I don't know exactly what it was, but we went out to a steak restaurant. And, of course, my mother was enamored with Brian Keith, as any young 30-plus-year-old woman would be at that time. And Jonathan Winters was not, a gorgeous hunk, but lots of fun to be with. And so that's what I do remember. I also remember that the girl who played Carl Reiner's youngest daughter and we were there during Halloween, and so our mothers dressed us up as husband and wife, bride and groom. And, those things I remember.
That's so cool. Oh, man. So, all right, getting back to Family Affair, I read a quote from you that said you once said that real children were not as sweet and nice as you guys were on Family Affair, but I do recall you clipping some of Mr. French's beard on a dare one time.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we weren't perfect. And there was the scene, or the other episode, where I wanted Uncle Bill to spank me.
Yeah.
To feel love, because they said, if he doesn't spank you, he doesn't love you.
Right.
And so those little things were all part of it. But, we weren't perfect kids, but we were better than the average child, I would say.
Right. I mean, I always loved, especially Brian Keith as Uncle Bill, the reluctant stepfather, but he was always doing his best to raise those kids, even though he didn't initially want to, but because he always remained true to himself and true to you guys as characters.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I thought that was really cool for the character.
A 35-year-old, maybe 40, I don't remember how old he was, but the character who had kind of put himself in the, had some beautiful women, and he's a wealthy engineer and had his pick of the women in New York City.
Oh, right. He's a swinging bachelor.
And then all of a sudden, these 3 kids come in and kind of stunt his ability to do all of what he would rather do.
Yeah.
But, he took it upon himself to be that father figure, because his brother, he did the job that was necessary.
Right.
I didn't think much of the fact that we were an unconventional family with 2 men and 3 children, although it was platonic and non-sexual.
Right.
We were the first blended family, I guess you can say.
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought of it that way.
You had bachelor father, but that was, daughter father, and a couple of others that were kind of similar. But yeah, it was a great thing that we could show that all families are not necessarily just a husband, wife, and kids.
Right. And you guys all had such great chemistry together, and I always felt that Mr. French and you had a special kind of chemistry, a special bond. And what was it like working with Sebastian Cabot?
Well, I don't know if you, in your research, you found out, but in Family Affair, we would work 9 months out of the year. And Brian Keith, however, in his contract, would only work 3 months out of the year.
Oh, wow.
So the scripts were written so that Brian Keith would have, a major role, but the series was mostly going to be around the kids.
Yeah.
And as we, as you probably have seen, that it was the Family Affair was it was the Buffy and Jody show.
Right.
And, kids that didn't really remember the name of the show would call it the Buffy and Jody show. Anyway, so we would only film Brian scenes for those 3 months. And we might do, and we had 26 scripts to do. So out of those 26 scripts, the first 3 months, we're only doing Brian Keith's episodes or scenes in all of the different episodes. So in one day, we might be filming scenes from 5 different episodes.
Wow.
So it was a nightmare for the continuity director and also for the wardrobe people, because they had to take pictures of us with Polaroids every time we got off the set, and then they knew what it was that we were wearing. And because it was a series, they got 3 of everything.
Wow.
3 of the same shirts, 3 of the same pants, 3 of the same shoes.
Right.
Because just in case, one got dirty and stained, and there's a scene before, and I have that, but there's a stain on the shirt, and the scene next to that we do 5 months later, and there's no stain on the shirt. It's
right.
The continuity is all messed up. So, but with that, Brian Keith was tons of fun and was with us. Sebastian was more of a teacher. And if we wanted to have fun, Sebastian or Sabby, as we called him, he had a daughter that was a niece's age.
Oh, okay.
And so, he had 2 or 3 other children that were older and already out of the house, I believe. But he would tell us, if we were playing around or laughing, and he says, the actor prepares. If you children would like to run our lines, I'm very happy to do so. But the actor prepares. And so, we would go, especially if it was a specific scene between Sebastian and us. And so, we would get not any pointers, but just watching him and following through. Sebastian was very much a thoughtful, everything had to have a purpose when he said a line or whatever. And Brian Keith everything was a throwaway line,
Wow.
And so it was interesting to, as I look back as an adult and as an actor, the 2 different styles of acting, but both were very good,
Right.
But, of course, Sebastian, anytime that there was a photo op, he would definitely bring the kids in and make sure, if there was some national or Newsweek or People magazine or something like that were there to talk to the kids, Sabby would say, hey, children, would you like to hear Winnie the Pooh? And so, of course, hey, Sebastian Cabot reading Winnie the Pooh to Buffy and Jody, that's a perfect picture. So, that happened many times.
Yep.
But he's very kind and good man, but he was not as much fun as Brian was.
Right. I can see that.
Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Hello, this is Rod Barnett. I'm the host of The Bloody Pit, the podcast that examines films from across the decades. On The Bloody Pit, We have several ongoing series of shows within the show focused on specific things in genre cinema that I and my co-hosts find fascinating. There's a long-running series focused on Italian maestro Antonio Margheriti's films from the 1960s all the way up through 1990. There's an on-again, off-again series focused on 1970s science fiction films. There's an in-depth look at the Western movies that William Castle made before he struck out on his own and became the horror auteur that we know and love. A look at the classic Coffin Joe films from Brazil. And our long-term project to look at every Universal horror film made in the 1940s. That's a long project, people. It's going to take us a long time. Sprinkled in amongst those are various other episodes focused on other stranger areas of cinema, like Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, and even some obscure British crime films from time to time. So join me and my rotating crew of co-hosts as we examine the stranger side of cinema through an exploitation lens. Except when we don't? Yeah, you never really know exactly what to expect on The Bloody Pit. So join me for The Bloody Pit.
Shark Bites Podcast. It's the greatest show in history. From the Dorkening Network, hosted by a nerd who's named Patsy. From movie reviews to tips on surviving the coronavirus, Shark Bites has it all. Follow us on Facebook and suggest topics at sharkbitespod@gmail.com. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
And is it true that the Mrs. Beasley doll was one of the producer's daughter's dolls?
That's what I believe, because if you look at the doll in the first episode, you'll see that it's kind of a ragtag. It looks more like a, what's the boy and girl doll?
Raggedy Ann and Andy?
Yeah, Raggedy Ann and Andy. It kind of looks like a Raggedy Ann whose hair was cut.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, the producer and the writer, Edmund Hartman, had been looking at this doll, and his daughter had named it Mrs. Beasley, and he thought that's the greatest name for a kid's doll. And so then, of course, once the series was picked up, Hasbro and Mattel started fighting for the rights to create a Mrs. Beasley doll.
Wow.
And so you can see that once there was a brand new, clean and freshened Mrs. Beasley in episode 2, or maybe 3. But yeah, Mrs. Beasley, there is the original. I don't know if it's the original that was a Mattel or the original is at the
Smithsonian
in Washington, D.C.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. So, do you want to talk about what happened with Anissa Jones? Because that had a profound effect on your life, right?
Well, I was a very prolific child actor.
Oh, yeah.
And not all child actors are able to do or, have not always had the opportunity to do extracurricular filming. My agent, Mary Grady, made sure that and she made it a part of my contract, that as long as we were off of hiatus, that she could submit me on other roles. And that's how I got all the Bonanza, Gunsmoke, and Bewitched, and Green Acres. All of those were because we would, while we were on hiatus, I could do that.
Yep.
But we had a great time, had a good, fun time doing and in being able to do all these other shows, of course, it worked my acting chops, and so I wasn't just Jody, but I forgot what the original question was.
I just wanted to know if you wanted to talk about what happened to Anissa Jones.
Oh, okay. So with that, I, of course, had been very prolific. Anissa, I believe, had done The Trouble with Girls with Elvis.
That's right.
Before Family Affair.
Yeah.
And then during Family Affair, didn't do much else. She wanted to just be a kid at home. And she also got the, she was up for the role in The Exorcist.
Oh, wow.
For the daughter. But she did not want it. And Linda Blair, who's a friend of mine today, got that role. But my agent, Mary Grady, happened to live near where Anissa grew up and saw her sitting on the curb in kind of a drug-induced stupor.
Wow.
According to what Mary Grady had told me. And so she said, Anissa, and she looked up, yeah, what do you want? And she goes, I'm Mary Grady. Yeah, who's that? I'm Johnny Whitaker's agent. Oh, I'm not interested. And, just wasn't very talkative. So she had talked to me and said, it might be a good thing for me to just give her a call and find out how she's doing. Now, again, Anissa was 2 years older than I.
Okay, and how old was she at this point?
She was 18. I was 16.
Okay.
And she, anyway, I don't remember if I really tried to get in touch with her or what, but I was planning on it. But I was also planning on the Johnny Whitaker show, which was a family variety show for the bicentennial. And we were, my younger brother and two sisters and myself in a band and some dancers and singers were all preparing for the Johnny Whitaker show that opened up for the we did a family variety show throughout the northwestern and southwestern United States. And so for whatever reason, I never really got a chance to talk to her. And while we'd started in Idaho at the flood, we were supposed to be singing, and we just continued to say, hey, yeah, it's going to be a free show instead of a cost show for the survivors and those that were in, I forget what city in Idaho it is there, but near the Ricks College in, come on, brain. Anyway, we were doing the show there in Rexburg, Idaho.
Okay.
And they had the big dam that broke, and anyway, that's where we started, and then we went to Salt Lake after that. I think we were also in Idaho Falls and then Salt Lake. And while we were there, Monday morning, I turned on the television and listened to Rona Barrett say that Mary Anissa Jones, who played Buffy, died of an apparent overdose yesterday in Oceanside, California.
Oh, man.
We had not been close friends that was 76, and we stopped filming in 71. So that was 5 years that we really hadn't had close contact. We may have done a couple of appearances together, but not a whole lot. And as we got there, or as I heard that, I was shocked, and I immediately called CBS and got the phone number to our publicity director to see if, what I should say or do if anyone was, were to ask me what's going on or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when I called, I got patched into him. However, the studios did it at the time, to where he was, which was at the house at Anissa's home with Anissa's mother, Paula, and her brother. And it was there that I spoke with him, and he said, well, there's not going to be a funeral because Paula was an atheist, but they will, cremate the body and not going to have any kind of a memorial. So don't rush back. And, It appears to have been a drug overdose, but we don't know for sure. And then it came out that the coroner there in Oceanside said that she had in her stomach a ball the size of a small baseball or a small fist of undigested drugs.
Oh, my God.
And said in his report that it was the largest amount of undigested drugs he'd ever found in a teenager before.
Wow. Oh, that's terrible.
But yeah, I was at the time a good little Mormon boy doing all the things that I'm supposed to do, but it was very shocking to me.
Oh, yeah, it must have been mind-numbing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And for that reason, I had kind of decided I was going to not continue as strong as I had been for the past 14 years.
Right.
And that's when I decided to go on a mission for the Mormon faith to Portugal, and where I was in the country of Portugal for 2 years, and then came back, got married, and 4 years into our marriage, my wife says she doesn't love me and wants to marry the man who gave me my bachelor party.
Oh, God.
And that was my precipitous event. And all of us who choose to take drugs and or alcohol to excess usually have a precipitous event.
Right.
And it was that plus some other situations which caused me to go to the dark side. And so I was on the dark side for probably about 10 years until my family had an intervention. And they said I have the choice of going into treatment or being excommunicated from the family. So I decided treatment was a lot better than excommunication. So
right. And good for you. I mean, you've cleaned your life up, and then you've really been profoundly helping people since then.
Well, I created a nonprofit on my father's birthday in 2003, and so we are coming up on 19 years, and it's called Paso por Paso, which means step by step. And basically what that means is my job is to find treatment and recovery for individuals who are monolingual or, speak only Spanish or Portuguese or sign language, and help them to find treatment and recovery in their own language.
Nice.
Plus, we do a whole lot of work with police reform and prison reform. And I am for funding the police.
Yeah.
But my god-grandchildren are Mexican, American, African.
Okay.
And so they're 75 times more likely to be pulled over just because of the color of their skin.
Right.
And, I know that is a fact. My best friend is black. My ex-girlfriend is from Africa. And I remember looking for a dress for her for a fancy ball we were supposed to go to. And, and this was almost 30 years ago. And, the retention people were following her around. And wait a minute, what are you following my girlfriend around for? Oh, we're not doing, I guess you are. I've been watching you for 10 minutes.
Wow.
And I went straight to the director or the manager of his department. And I spoke and said, there is a problem, and I'd like him to apologize to my, at the time, fiance. And he did. But I do understand that. But with Paso por Paso, we're more interested in making sure that those whose voices are not necessarily heard, especially those who are incarcerated, who addiction is a really weird animal. What happens is an individual changes once they start putting drugs into their system. And the person that is drug addict or inebriated and drunk is not the same person they are when they are sober.
Exactly. Yeah.
However, they are the same human being, so anything that happens while they are under the influence has to be, they're responsible for it.
Right.
But they are not responsible for everything that they say and do under the influence, but the person needs to be responsible once they become sober. Anyway, there's a whole lot of stigma about it. There's a whole lot of negative press, and slowly we are starting to get more understanding of the disease of addiction. But at Paso por Paso, we are dedicated to making sure that everyone gets a chance at treatment and recovery, and that we are, all brothers and sisters.
Yep.
And even those that are not the sweetest, nicest people. I mean, I have worked in the prison, in a level 4 prison here in California, because I wanted to know a little bit about someone who was actually there. And for that reason, I believe that there are a lot of people who do stupid things. I teach people who are who have received a DUI here in California, and many of them just were upset for a night and got drunk and then decided to drive, but they're not real addicts or alcoholics. And then we have those who are real addicts and alcoholics, and they need to find treatment and recovery.
Right.
And just because they don't speak English is not a reason why we should not help them get what they need.
Yeah. Good for you. That's amazing. It's an amazing work that you're doing there. I have a few more questions for you. I wanted to jump back just briefly, because when we were talking about the cops, it reminded me that, you and I had mentioned that you were on Adam 12, and that Kent McCord, who, starred with Martin Milner on that show, he was on the National Board of Directors for the Screen Actors Guild. Did he work on revising the law with you, the Coogan law?
Well, I don't remember him coming to any of our meetings. Actually, at the time that I remember, it was Patty Duke who was the president at the time.
Okay.
And Patty did come. But one interesting thing, Martin Milner's son was supposed to be the actor, but Martin Milner's son couldn't act.
Oh.
And so I got the job to do the acting, and Martin Milner's son got the job to do the motorcycle riding.
Huh.
So Martin Milner's son was the stunt boy.
Oh, okay. And this was on that episode.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. And I know my listeners are going to want to hear a little bit about Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. First of all, how did that come about?
Well, of course, I had done Tom Sawyer, the film, the summer before, and Sid and Marty Krofft knew that it was going to be a big hit, and I was, it was Leif Garrett, Johnny Whitaker, and Donny Osmond.
Wow.
And so I had been to Puerto Rico to do some show. Anyway, and I had learned to scuba dive, and I heard about Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, and I met with Marty and with Sid, and I actually am a producer, a non-printed producer, but I helped to produce it.
Wow.
In the fact that they gave me the choice of helping to cast my brother, Scott Colden, with whom I'd worked on a Disney movie the year before called Mystery in Dracula's Castle.
Okay, yeah.
And we had, worked together, and I liked him, he liked me, we had a good time, let's make lots of money. And then I also was excited because I thought, well, am I going to get to scuba dive? Because we're, going under to meet the family or whatever.
Right.
Oh, yeah. We'll have that in the script, and never did in the 3 years that we did it. Never put any, just came out of the water.
Right.
Supposedly after surfing, but didn't ever get into the water, wasn't taught how to surf or anything, and I was kind of upset about that. But yeah, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters was lots of fun. Billy Barty, was the puppeteer in the the costume,
right,
or the puppet costume for Sigmund. And you can tell that Sigmund has a little hitch in his giddy up when he's running, and that's because Billy Barty did.
Yeah.
Second year, we got Rip Taylor on the set.
Yeah.
And hello!
Yeah.
It's a party!
Must have spent hours cleaning up all the confetti.
No, but Rip was a great man. It was lots of fun.
That's awesome.
And after Sigmund, we actually met back up when there's the Silver Spoon is no longer there in West Hollywood, but I was living in West Hollywood and went with a friend to lunch or breakfast at the Silver Spoon, and Rip Taylor was there.
Oh, wow.
And so I went over to say hello to Rip Taylor, and I don't know who else was with him, but, it had to be somebody famous. And, got a chance to talk, and we exchanged phone numbers, and, had a wonderful redo of our friendship up until his passing last year.
Right.
We still were good friends.
Nice. Are you still in contact with Scott Colden?
Yes, not as much as either of us would like, but he's the father of 6 kids.
Wow.
And doesn't live too far, but far enough that we don't get together. And every once in a while, especially if there's an autograph show or something, we will, get together. And every Tuesday they have Taco Tuesdays and have invited me over a few times.
That's cool. And so after Sigmund, you did that one-off that I mentioned in the intro, The World of Sid and Marty Krofft Live at the Hollywood Bowl. Do you remember that?
Well, actually, we did that while we were doing.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Sigmund.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how much of a production was that, and how involved were you?
Well, that was a great big production, but I really was just the MC.
Yeah.
But, I had met then all of the Brady kids.
Right.
And then that's how the Brady Bunch Hour began.
Oh, okay.
But we had lots of fun doing it. I wish, in retrospect, that they would have given me at least some kind of a choreographer, because I was just kind of clapping my hands and not doing anything too difficult, but
trying to wrangle that microphone cable around the stand.
Yes, that too. But Billy Barty actually was in that one too.
Yep. And did you get a chance to hang out with Jack Wilde at all? Or had you known him?
Yeah, and Jack was Jack. We'd had one episode of Sigmund where Puff and Stuff and Jack show up.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
It probably was during the same time, because Marty's pretty cheap in not wanting to fly Jack over twice.
Right. And so did you get a chance to get on, at least to look at any of the other Krofft sets of the other shows they were doing?
Well, while we were doing Sigmund, they were filming Land of the Lost, and our cave was the same cave that they used for Land of the Lost.
Oh, okay. That's awesome.
But Wesley Ewer and myself have been friends for years and continue. We're actually going to be on the Susan Anton Where Are They Now show.
Oh, wow.
Next week. I don't know when it's going to air, but which should be lots of fun.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, Wesley's one that is on my list. I would love to get him on the show.
Okay. And what I can do you have his contact information?
Let me jump over quick in IMDb Pro. Yeah, I have his email addresses on IMDb Pro.
Okay, great. So, and he lives half of the year in Mexico and half the year in down in, from me, it's south, in Palm Springs and then in Mexico.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And you did recently, what was it, this past April, you did the Missouri Cherry Blossom Festival?
Yes.
Yeah, and Mike Lookinland from the Brady Bunch was there. Had you connected with the Bradys over the years?
I mean, not with Mike, but I had connected with Susan.
Okay.
Wait, let's see. Not Susan. The youngest girl.
Was it Susan Olsen? No.
Yeah, that's right. I did say Susan.
Yeah.
I was right. Susan Olsen and I, we have some mutual friends, and so we've talked. And actually, she lives in the same town in the North County, Los Angeles, that I live in, and I've seen her at the grocery store, and I've seen her son. He is a musician and likes to sing on the street, giving free concerts.
Nice.
And does a good job. So we've seen each other here and there.
That's great. That's great. Sounds like you're having a lot of fun. And have you done the Cherry Blossom Festival before, or because it's annual?
No, this was the first time.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Yeah, we're going to have to check that out at some point, my wife and I. One other final thing before we close out here, I just wanted to talk about you still teach acting, correct?
I do, and I love it. And I've gone to about 5 different places in the States and have done a few here in Los Angeles.
Nice. And what's one of the first pieces of advice you might give to an aspiring actor or actress?
Well, for free, I'm giving this to everybody, just on your show. You have 2 jobs as a child actor. Number 1 job is to have fun. Number 2 job is to make your mom and dad look good. And so if you are having too much fun and not learning your lines and not taking the time that it takes to learn your lines,
right,
then you're not doing your job.
Exactly.
And sometimes you have to take less fun and learn to accept that, it's not all fun and games, and you got to do that.
Right.
But also, my fans and friends, I am getting prepared to do we're not exactly sure what it's going to be called, but I've got lots of little fires in the works, but one of them is to do a cabaret show.
Oh, very nice.
And we're going to do a part of the cabaret show online to a group of friends and fans, and they can go to johnnywhitaker.com or my Johnny Whitaker fan page on Facebook or Twitter and find out about it. But basically, about 50 fans and friends will be able to get online, and I will be singing and talking and making jokes and doing a little tete-a-tete with the fans and friends that come to see the show. And there will be a cost, and we're not exactly sure what that's going to be, but all proceeds will, of course, go to Paso por Paso. And when I get it all set up and ready to go, I will let you know, and you can kind of get the word out.
Absolutely. We'd love to help you out on that. Have you ever considered writing a memoir or even a book on acting and how to navigate Hollywood?
Well, that is also in the works.
Excellent.
Because, but it'll have to be a 2-parter, before crack, BC, and after crack.
Oh, that's amazing. John, it has truly been an honor speaking to you. You've had such an impact on our pop culture, as well as people suffering from addiction, and, you really should truly be commended for all that. So once again, can you tell our listeners where to find you on your website and social media?
Sure. You go to johnnywhitaker.com. And that's JOHNNYWHITAKER.com. And there you can find my links to my Twitter page. You can become a Twitiker if you are not yet. So, and I've got quite a few Twitikers, but I've got more Facebook friends. I'm also on MeWe and other places, but they're all there at JohnnyWhitaker.com. on Contact Us.
Excellent. Excellent. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And, hopefully we can have you back again to promote, your next thing, whether it's your book or your performance or whatever you got going on.
You bet. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Hey, bye-bye, friends.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my interview with the iconic and legendary Johnny Whitaker. Please be sure to check out all the movies and shows he's been in, check out him online and on social media, as well as supporting his Paso por Paso endeavor, which helps tons of people with addiction issues. Remember, you can send your feedback to thenisnow42@gmail.com. You can also join in the conversation at our Facebook Then Is Now podcast group. Then Is Now podcast is a proud member of the Dorkening Podcast Network, so please be sure to check out the other great shows there at thedorkening.com. You can also visit our website, havenpodcasts.com, where you'll find our sister show, The East Meets the West, in which we discuss Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti western movies. And Then Is Now is on YouTube, so please visit youtube.com/user/UncleDeath1 to get the latest videos as well as other fun videos. Please subscribe to our YouTube page and also share the video versions of our podcast with your friends and get them to subscribe as well. Don't forget to go wherever you download your podcast from, and if you really enjoyed this episode, please leave us a great review so that more listeners can find us. You can find us on all the podcasting apps, especially the big three, iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. Class dismissed.
Then Is Now podcast is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is copyright Jupiter Media.
For more shows like the one you just heard, check out the Dorkening Podcast Network at thedorkening.com.